a domestic situation happening right in front of my driveway, and now he's driving away, I think, just about fighting. There's that is Lauren Boebert's jackass husband, Jason. He's running over my mailbox right now. Stop, you jackass! Get the fuck out of here!
And you said, come on, man! What are you doing?
What did we do wrong? I live here. I didn't even...
Sir, talk to me. Sir?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I need
There's about to be some shit going down here.
Okay. Okay, who is the gentleman
that's Lauren Boebert's jackass husband.
Lauren?
Jason Boebert.
Jason? Okay.
Lauren Boebert.
What's he driving?
Yeah, Lauren Boebert, the congresswoman. He's driving a Ford pickup F-150.
I would kindly ask you all to please forgive me as we go through this video that I might accidentally call this person Lauren Boebert. It's just kind of how it rolls off my tongue. It's not meant to be an insult to this person by any means of the imagination, but because of that habit I have developed, I'm going to try to develop a new habit by calling her Lauren Boebert. So that way it is accurate to the culture that we are talking about here. And trust me, as we get through this video, we're going to be talking about a lot of the culture that this person inherits here. Like, we're talking about a lot. She's a very cultural person. So yeah, this is Lauren Boebert, and in the town of Rifle, Colorado, she once owned a restaurant called Shooter's Grill, which, of course, you know, I'm a gun advocate. I am definitely for the right to bear arms. Not to but under no pretext. So let's not get it confused here. And of course, due to various health concerns and one thing led to another, this restaurant closed down. Thank goodness. But this is not what the video is about. What's more concerning is that she is a state representative of the state of Colorado, and she represents that much of the state of Colorado. So that's not a good start here. We're looking at a pretty textbook Republican here, someone who is against abortion rights, against LGBTQ+ rights, pro-gun, and of course against comprehensive sexual education in schools. Now, that last part is the most relevant because we've got ourselves a bit of a doozy here today, which is the main topic of this video. Lauren Boebert will be a grandmother at 36. This is what conservatives want for us. And that's a pretty damning headline because, of course, the initial impulse reaction to such a headline is that conservatives would rush to this author here and say, no, we don't want kids to be having sex. That's what the LGBTs are doing. They're trying to groom your kids. Well, hold on one second, everyone. Why don't we actually dig deep into this one, use our critical thinking skills, and come to a conclusion that is hopefully fruitful in all of this. So let's read the article. By the way, it's on The Guardian, and I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in reading it for yourself. This shouldn't need to be said in 2023, but forcing teenagers to become parents isn't good for the teenagers, the baby, or society in general. And I can speak kind of authoritatively here on this issue, given that my mother has had me under the age of 17. So what this means is that while I was growing up, we had a lot of socio-economic issues that we had to be confronted with, and my mother was arguably pretty young at this point. And it also needs to be said that I'm pretty thankful that not only I'm alive and kicking it, but so is my mother, especially having to raise me at such a young age. So abortion is a really necessary thing for society to have access to, because then teenagers aren't forced to be in a parental situation when these teenagers are absolutely not prepared to be parents yet. I mean, look, I know that the Virgin Mary had Jesus Christ at the age of 14, so yeah, it does make God a by the way. But it doesn't mean that all teenagers, especially in today's contemporary America, need to be parents as well. That's just not necessary. And more importantly here, why are we not preparing students who are teenagers, by the way, to be successful parents when they're older? Not to mention, we do have some pretty piss poor sex education. It is heavily underfunded and it is treated like a joke. I remember when I had sex ed in my school, and the teacher was trying really hard to dodge around some of the more risque terms that she wasn't comfortable talking about because she was underqualified, despite her trying her darn hardest. And then one of the students raised his hand and said, "How does the sperm know when to come out?" And of course, everyone in the class laughed. And that's because no one was taking this class seriously, because it's underfunded, the teacher is underqualified to talk about this issue, and ultimately the people in charge do not care if students are protected and prepared for things like sexual transmitted diseases, the honest to good hardness and trials and tribulations of pregnancy, learning about consent, boundaries, different types of relationships, what relationships are healthy and not healthy. You know, like having teenagers not have sex until they're able to make a consenting decision when they're old enough to do so. This compulsory heteronormative bullshit that we see in our sexual education in schools is laughable and inexcusable. And I think Lauren Boebert, a goddamn adult who is a politician in the state of Colorado, should know better at this point. But I guess she's just really looking forward to being a grandmother at the age of 36. Boebert's rural family values. Congratulations to Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, who is becoming a grandma at the tender age of 36. Speaking at a conservative political action conference, CPAC, Moms for America event on Tuesday, the Colorado Congresswoman shared the news that her 17-year-old son is expecting a baby with his teenage girlfriend in April. Boebert is famous for her far-right views and for stunts like putting out an advert explaining why she's going to carry a gun in Congress. In 2021, she also posted an infamous Christmas card photo of her 4 sons, 2 of them are very young, brandishing rifles in front of a Christmas tree. She is, in short, an incorrigible attention seeker who spends more time stoking culture wars than she does producing legislation. That is a really fancy way of saying that she is a fucking Karen. That said, she and her children are obviously entitled to a private life. I want to stress that the only reason her growing family is at all newsworthy is because Boebert decided to turn a private affair into a big public statement about how the rest of us should live. Yes, and I also want to stress a few things about this as well. For one, I am not blaming or judging the kid here. The kid obviously should not be having a kid at the age of 17. This is underage sex. It is needless to say that these are 2 people who are not prepared to be raising another child themselves. They are socially and economically unable to adequately do so. And if anyone needs it spelled out for them, this is why we need to have Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics, because this type of shit does happen, even within Christian conservative families with so-called moral high ground standards that they feel the need to legislate for the entire fucking country. This is what we're talking about here when we say that abortion access needs to be available to everyone. Speaking at the CPAC event, the extremely anti-abortion Boebert said that her biggest fear was whether her son and his partner would choose life. When they did, she was so proud that she decided to turn them into a parable about rural family values. Hey, Lauren Boebert, I just want to make something really clear to you for a second here. You are promoting underage sex right now by promoting this as a parable for your little rural family values. When people think of rural family values, they don't really think of like God and tractors and apple pie. They think about siblings incest, family members who are related by blood having with each other. This is the image that goes through people's heads when you instill something like rural family values. And my friend, that is not by any stretch of the imagination a good look for you for your little public relations repair job. I'm sure that like maybe you want to be affiliated with your little cottagecore fantasy or whatever, but in execution, you are by a large margin not accomplishing that, not even a little bit. So maybe you just quit this whole little rural family values public relations repair job while you're at it.
There's something special about rural conservative communities.
Boebert effuse.
They value life. If you look at teen pregnancy rates throughout the nation, well, they are the same in rural and urban areas. However, abortion rates are higher in urban areas. Teen moms rates are higher in rural conservative areas because they understand the preciousness of a life that is about to be born.
Just, that quote was cancer. This person is so fucking batshit. I swear to God. Abortion being more accessible in urban areas is not a victory for you, Boebert. Are you fucking serious? In fact, rural areas should have abortion access too. It is a shame, in fact, that rural areas don't have abortion access. Because what happens when one Christmas Eve, Uncle Tom comes over to Christmas and... You can't say that never happens in rural areas, because when you go on Grindr or Tinder or OkCupid or The Right Way or whatever, you're not going to find a whole lot of women who want to fuck that fucking sleazy ass scumbag. So he has to prey on underage girls, and he has to gonna fucking cope with having a baby at such a young age. That actually has happened several times already within recent history. Within the last couple of years, in fact. I'm just gonna say it as it is. She's promoting. I'm not even sugarcoating it. Lauren Boebert is promoting. She thinks it's okay for children to have with each other, and with adults for that matter, so that she can promote her own political agenda. Literally, if you're against abortion, you are pro. In the event that Lauren presses me and challenges me on this statement, I'll even go further and say that yes, Lauren Boebert is she is literally glorifying her children's sexual relationships, you know, as a political stunt. What is the difference between that and she is using it as a means for consumption here? It is a propaganda piece. Obviously, we're consuming propaganda when she is using it as a PR tactic, as a PR piece. She is a fucking and she should be fucking treated like a. What would you do if you found out someone in your community was a? Comment below. Well, perhaps that's one reason teenage mothers are more prevalent in rural areas. Perhaps another reason is that the teenage girls are unable to access a safe and legal abortion and are forced to give birth when they are unprepared to be parents. Even before Roe v. Wade was overturned, it was difficult and expensive for rural Americans to access abortion services. According to data analyzed by the Pro-Choice Guttmacher Institute, for example, 20% of U.S. women in 2014 already had to travel at least 42 miles to access abortion services. Meanwhile, women living in rural counties in Montana, Texas, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas had to travel more than 180 miles. Now that Roe has been overturned, Bloomberg estimates that Americans in 26 states will have to travel 552 miles to get an abortion. 552 miles. That is absolutely fucking absurd, especially for something that should be an essential fucking service. This shouldn't need to be said in 2023, but forcing teenagers to become parents isn't good for the teenagers, the baby, or society in general. Far too often, it means the mother having to give up her education. According to the CDC, for example, only about 50% of teenage mothers have received a high school diploma by 22 years of age, whereas approximately 90% of women who do not give birth during adolescence graduate from high school. Boebert herself became a mom when she was 17 and ended up dropping out of high school. The CDC also notes that the children of teenage mothers are more likely to have lower school achievements and to drop out of high school, have more health problems, be incarcerated at some time during adolescence, give birth as teenagers, and face unemployment as a young adult. So this is the conclusion of the article. Access to abortion is one way to reduce teenage pregnancies. Quality sex health education in school is another. Boebert, of course, is against both. At another CPAC event, Boebert said she wants to cut funding for quote-unquote comprehensive sex education, stating it shouldn't be taught to any student in public school.
But we have to get aggressive and say, you know, there is going to be money spent in the Department of Education that is going to be funded. What do we want that funding to go towards? What do we not want it to go towards? Because there are schools that are worse than, that are teaching worse than just gender ideology. Yeah. I mean, they have comprehensive sex ed. They're teaching kids how to have and enjoy sex, and even same-sex sex, how to pleasure themselves. Wow. I mean, this is not something elementary students should learn, or nor any student in a public school. So, you know, these are the things that we need to go after and cut their funding.
This is an elected official who thinks that what's happening in school is that teachers are teaching children so-called gender ideology, when comprehensive sex education has more to do with preventing the spread of STI and HIV and teaching kids about setting boundaries, building relationships, making sure that children know the fucking difference between a consensual and non-consensual relationship. By the way, between adults, not between a 17-year-old child that you use for your own political campaign, you fascist. She's obviously not the only Republican with this view. Conservatives have been increasingly attacking sexual education in schools in recent years and pushing abstinence-only programs. It won't surprise you to hear that a wealth of evidence show that abstinence-only programs don't work. Rather, they are a great way to generate a lot more 36-year-old grandmothers. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but Arwa Madawi, you wrote a fantastic article. You covered all of the talking points so adequately. And for all of you listeners and readers out there, I strongly recommend you not only read her article, but also check her sources, because she cited some really crucial and essential statistics that strongly support her claim. She did an excellent job on this article. As for Lauren Boebert, I have one last thing I want to say. I thought about this in the 6 days of absence that I had from making this video, because I really wanted to also think about what I wanted to say to you in the event that you are happening to watch this video. So here we go. I stand by what I said earlier about how you are promoting child sexual activities and promoting it for your own political agenda. You are, in fact, by definition, and peddling for child for your little political stunt. And it is shameful, especially since what you were trying to do with it is restrict access to abortion care. And you are also the same person pushing the same political rhetoric, saying that trans people and LGBT people in general are groomers. And it is abhorrently evident that you have a lack of self-awareness in this situation. You should be deeply ashamed, like an existential crisis ashamed. You are a 36-year-old grandmother. You should be ashamed. And conversely speaking here, like, in place of you talking in big praise about your son having a fucking child at the age of 17, like you did, Don't fucking scream at your child saying that your child ruined your political campaign and political career when you get voted out of office because you fucking fucked up. Your son's behavior happened because of people like you. You raised your son to be like yourself. You need to take ownership and responsibility for your son. You are a fucking disgrace. A pitiful, absolute disgrace to all the people in your community. Rightful Colorado must be ashamed of you.